You, the learner, you're not just here for the quick summary, right? You want those deeper insights, the stuff that really sticks, but without getting, totally bogged down.
Exactly. That's what we aim for.
And you've given us some really rich material this time. Today we're diving into one that definitely stood out. A voyage of extraordinary growth.
Yeah, and this deep dive, we've really shaped it for you using your source. Think of it almost like a compass and maybe a light manual, like the book says, for your own tourney. It's not about laying down strict rules.
Right.
It's more about finding the sort of bedrock principles that can light up your specific path,
It's a unique transformation.
Exactly. We want to equip you with that enduring wisdom, those practical tools, so your growth journey feels really meaningful step by step.
And A Voyage of Extraordinary Growth, it's such an interesting blend, isn't it? It weaves together psychology, a bit of philosophy, and just real stories from people who felt that same pull, that need to evolve.
Yeah, and what I really like is how it stresses your story.
Right. Your history, the challenges, what you're aiming for.
And those unique gifts you bring, all of that shapes your specific adventure. It's not one size fits all.
Definitely not.
So our goal today, keep it structured, keep it engaging, pull out some really surprising facts maybe, and those relatable examples.
Like the balloons and phoenixes, yeah.
Exactly, those things that make abstract ideas click. We want those aha moments for you, those clear takeaways, without that feeling of just being overwhelmed by information.
Okay, so where should we start this voyage?
Well, let's jump right in. The book kicks off with this idea of the spark of transformation.
Okay, the spark.
Yeah.
That initial call to change. How do we even spot that in our lives?
No, what's really interesting is it often shows up as these unexplained attractions, as the source puts it.
Unexplained attractions.
Well, think about those activities or maybe topics, even just qualities you see in others that keep pulling you in consistently. Even if they seem totally impractical or, completely unrelated to your job or your current life.
Right, those little nagging interests.
Exactly. That persistent pull, that quiet fascination, that could be the first flicker, the spark trying to get your attention.
So don't just brush those off.
Definitely not. Pay attention. They might be way more significant than they seem.
Now, that really hits home. We all have those, I think. The book also mentions dissatisfaction mapping. How does feeling dissatisfied signal this spark?
Yeah, that feeling of, the book calls it divine discontent.
Divine discontent. I like that.
It's a great phrase, isn't it? It's that underlying restlessness, that sense that something more wants to come through in your life.
Okay.
And by consciously mapping where you feel that dissatisfaction the most, you can actually pinpoint the areas where growth is actively trying to break through.
So that nagging feeling isn't just something to complain about.
Not at all. It can be the engine, the very thing that pushes you into your next chapter. It often provides that initial burst of energy needed for change.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the book suggests a really cool exercise here, the future self-vision.
Future self-vision. How does talking to my future self help find the spark now?
Well, imagine it. You have a conversation with the you who's already gone through this transformation, who's fully embraced it.
Okay.
What would that future you say about the spark that's just trying to wake up in you right now?
So they'd have perspective.
Exactly. What little interests or, those dissatisfactions would they point to and say, see, that was the beginning. It's about getting that future perspective on your present.
That's a really powerful framing device.
Yeah.
Now, Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset comes in here too, right?
Yeah.
How does our mindset affect whether we even see the spark?
Oh, hugely. Dweck's research is so relevant. A growth mindset, that core belief that you can learn, you can grow, that challenges are opportunities, that creates the perfect soil, for that spark to not just catch, but to actually thrive.
So if you think you're fixed, you might miss it.
You're much less likely to recognize it, or if you do, you might dismiss it as impractical or too hard. But if you believe you can develop,
you're open to it.
You're open, and you're more likely to act on those initial nudges, even if they feel a bit uncertain or uncomfortable at first. It's like the ground is ready for the seed.
Yeah, the soil needs to be receptive. And the book uses this great analogy, the phoenix.
The phoenix cycle.
And neural pathways reforming. How does our brain actually change when we start down this path?
Well, think of those first tentative steps towards change as literally forging new connections in your brain.
Like building new roads.
Exactly like building new roads. Just like the phoenix rises renewed, Our brains can reorganize and strengthen these new pathways through practice, through effort.
Okay.
The book talks about the growth edge, that place where it feels a bit uncomfortable, but also kind of exhilarating. That's where you're stretching. And that's where new neural connections are being made.
So that discomfort isn't bad.
It's often a sign you're on that edge, actively building those new pathways in your brain.
So that feeling of unease when starting something new, it's not necessarily a red flag to stop.
Not at all. The book compares it beautifully, like the first rush of hot air stowing a balloon's envelope.
Okay, I can picture that.
That feeling of stretching, of things starting to shift, it's not a warning. It's often the herald of your upward journey.
A herald, I like that.
Yeah. And Abraham Maslow, he talked about this too. Growth is rewarding, sure, but it involves uncertainty, challenge. Those peak moments come between the stretches.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. And there's that Joseph Campbell quote the book uses. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.
Yes. That sums it up perfectly, doesn't it?
It really does. Pushing through the fear.
It captures that paradox. Often the stuff we shy away from, the discomfort,
Yeah.
that's exactly where the biggest growth is waiting. Like the phoenix needing the flames for rebirth, we often need to step out of our comfort zone, leave old patterns behind to find something new in ourselves.
The cave holds the treasure. Okay, so after the spark, maybe navigating some of that initial discomfort, what's next? The book mentions preparation, building momentum.
Yeah, and this phase is absolutely crucial if you want the change to stick.
Right, not just a flash in the pan.
Exactly. Positive psychology research backs this up. This preparation stage is where you build up your inner resources, resilience, self-belief, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And also the outer stuff, the practical support systems you'll need for the longer haul.
Like packing for a big trip. You wouldn't just set off unprepared.
Precisely. You gather your supplies. And the book makes a really interesting point here.
Yeah.
During this prep phase, notice if you're suddenly drawn to certain books or people or experiences.
Like little signposts?
Kind of. Pay attention to those impulses. They often contain little nuggets of wisdom like breadcrumbs, showing you what your specific journey needs.
So your intuition is guiding you to the right resources. And neurologically, what's happening as we build momentum?
Well, those new neural pathways we talked about, now they're starting to connect with your existing, more established brain networks.
Well, it's not about wiping the slate clean.
Not usually, no. It's more about expanding, reorganizing, making your brain's architecture more complex, more adaptable to handle these new ways of being.
Okay. And the transformation timeline exercise.
Yeah.
What's the value of drawing that out?
It's a simple but pretty powerful reflective tool. It helps you visually acknowledge your own unique process.
Okay.
You just draw a horizontal line on a page. That's your whole journey.
Right.
And on the far left, you mark first spark. Just doing that anchors the beginning, gives you a starting point. The book comes back to the other end of the line later on.
Got it. So acknowledge the start. Now, after the spark, building momentum. It's not always a smooth ride, is it? The book talks about sustained courage.
Absolutely critical. All the research on things like grit and resilience points to this.
That sticking power.
Yeah, that ability to keep going, to push through obstacles. That's often way more important than just raw talent or how excited you were at the very beginning.
Keeping the fire lit when things get tough.
Exactly.
And it's so crucial to remember everyone's spark, everyone's journey looks different. That's okay, right?
Totally. Okay. The book really emphasizes this. Your transformation is yours. The spark might look completely different for you than for someone else.
Yeah.
And your job isn't to copy someone else's path. It's to honor that authentic call coming from your own heart.
Okay, so we've got the spark, momentum building, the need for courage. Then the book moves to desire as catalyst. Why is desire, that inner drive, so important?
This is where that initial spark starts to grow into a real sustained flame, your inner fire, as the book calls it.
Inner fire.
Desire is the catalyst. It's what fuels the whole transformation. Chapter 2 kicks off by saying desire is often misunderstood, maybe even seen negatively.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a bad rap.
Right. But it's fundamental. It propels the journey. And it's not just wanting nice things. It's that deep yearning, that constructive, divine discontent. Even sometimes a justifiable anger about things that fuels a powerful drive for change.
So desire can be a really potent force for good. The book then shifts to building a foundational base. What are these core building blocks?
This brings us right back to basics, like really basic physiological needs.
Air, water, food.
Exactly. Shelter, sleep, clothing, even the drive for reproduction. The book links this straight to Maslow's hierarchy.
Right.
And it compares these needs to the structure of the balloon's basket or the materials the phoenix gathers for its nest.
The essential platform.
Totally. They create the indispensable platform for everything else. You can't soar if the basket's falling apart, right?
Makes sense. If those basics aren't met, focusing on higher growth is almost impossible.
It's incredibly difficult, and the neuroscience confirms this. If your basic needs aren't met, your brain prioritizes survival above all else.
Survival mode.
Yeah, stress responses kick in, blood flow gets redirected away from the prefrontal cortex, the bit you need for planning, self-awareness, higher thinking, and towards the more primitive survival structure. The brain just has its priorities straight when it comes to survival.
You can't really argue with that logic. If you're starving, finding yourself isn't top of the list.
Yeah.
The book has a foundations assessment here. What areas does it ask us to look at?
It pushes for a really honest, nuanced look, like for sleep. It's not just how many hours.
Right, quality over quantity sometimes.
Exactly. Is it restorative? Do you wake up feeling refreshed? Is your mind clear? Is your schedule reasonably consistent, aligned with your natural rhythms? Or hydration, not just the total amount, but are you drinking consistently? Do you notice subtle signs like headaches, fatigue, trouble concentrating, even checking your urine color?
Wow, getting really practical.
Yeah, it's these tangible details we often overlook, but they have such a huge impact on our foundation.
These seem like things anyone can check in on. Okay, after physiological needs, the next layer is safety and security. How does feeling safe build that foundation?
Once the basic physical stuff is mostly handled, we need that sense of stability, order, predictability, freedom from constant fear or threat.
Okay.
The book likens this to the balloon's envelope needing to be intact to hold the hot air.
Right, otherwise it collapses.
Or the phoenix needing a protected space for its transformation. Safety creates the container for sustained growth.
And what happens brain-wise if we don't feel safe? If we're living with chronic insecurity?
Well, research from various fields, developmental psychology, trauma studies, neuroscience, really highlights this. Chronic insecurity keeps those basic survival mechanisms switched on.
Hypervigilance.
Exactly. You're constantly scanning for danger. And that state consumes huge amounts of cognitive resources.
Resources you need for other things.
Resources you desperately need for exploring, creating, learning, developing. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, tends to take over. And it overrides the prefrontal cortex, limiting complex thought, balanced responses. You get stuck in reaction mode.
So feeling safe isn't just a nice to have, it's biochemically necessary for growth. The next layer up is belonging and connection, our need for relationships, community. How does that fit in?
This is fundamental. That need for belonging, intimate relationships, community ties, cultural participation, even connection to nature provides the social bedrock for individual growth.
Okay.
And the book tackles that common tension, the feeling that you have to choose between belonging and being your authentic self.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Fit in or be true to yourself.
Right. But the book offers a great perspective. It uses the balloon analogy. Again, the balloon follows wind currents but keeps its own shape. Or the phoenix honors its species but has its own unique expression. It argues we can have a deep connection without surrendering who we are.
That's really empowering. And it breaks down belonging into different facets.
Yeah, several key dimensions. There's intimate connection partners, deep friends, family bonds, real understanding and acceptance.
Okay.
Then community membership, shared activities, common purpose, group identity, cultural participation, traditions, shared values, heritage. And finally, natural connection, our bond with the environment, with nature itself. It's broader than just having friends.
Definitely expands the definition. There's a belonging map exercise too. How does mapping this help?
It's a really insightful way to visualize your social ecosystem. You draw a circle for self in the middle.
Okay.
Then 4 quadrants around it for those dimensions: intimate, community, cultural, natural.
Right.
Then you place symbols, names, groups, places in the right quadrant. Closer to the center means more significant or active. Further out means less so.
So you get a visual snapshot.
Exactly. You see clearly where you feel connected and maybe where there are gaps or areas needing attention.
That sounds really useful. And belonging isn't something you achieve once and you're done.
Yeah.
Right. It needs nurturing.
Absolutely not. The book stresses this. Like all these needs, it's dynamic, ongoing. It needs conscious attention, cultivation.
Like tending a garden.
perfect analogy, like a balloon pilot constantly adjusting to air currents or the phoenix gathering new materials for each cycle. Your belonging network evolves.
You need to actively work on it.
Yeah, the book suggests concrete steps. Deepen existing ties, build new ones, reconnect with cultural roots, make time for nature. Conscious effort.
Okay, so we have physiological, safety, belonging. The next layer is esteem and recognition. Self-worth, how others see us. How does that fit the foundation?
Well, sustainable esteem, real self-worth, comes from a healthy balance. It's partly external recognition, but also crucially internal self-validation.
Not relying too much on either one.
Exactly. Rely only on external praise and your self-worth is fragile. Ignore all external feedback and you become unrealistic.
Mhm.
Psychologist Michael Kernis talks about optimal self-esteem, stable but flexible, grounded in accurate self-awareness, knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, a realistic, positive self-view. The book also mentions the red glow of authentic contribution. What's that about?
This is a really powerful source of esteem. It's that deep satisfaction you get from using your genuine talents, your passions, in service of something bigger than yourself.
Contributing to the community, a cause.
Yeah, or just making a positive difference for people around you. Research shows esteem from meaningful contribution is much more stable, more resilient than esteem based just on status or achievements.
That feels true. Being valued for what you do versus who you are and what you give.
Right. And there's often a developmental shift. Younger, maybe we seek praise for accomplishments. As we mature, esteem often gets rooted more in contribution and impact.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we've built this foundation. Physiological, safety, belonging, esteem. What's the next step? The book talks about the integrated foundation preparing us for self-actualization.
Yes, and the key word there is integrated. It's crucial to see these foundational needs not as separate silos you fill up one by one.
Right, not just a checklist.
Not at all. They're interconnected, interdependent,
Right.
like the woven strands of the balloon basket or the diverse materials in the phoenix's nest.
They all work together.
Exactly. The strength comes from their integration. Even Maslow later saw his hierarchy as more dynamic, interactive. And modern research agrees fulfillment in one area boosts others. You get these positive spirals of well-being.
Okay, so a holistic sense of well-being across the board. And this integrated foundation sets the stage for self-actualization.
Precisely. It prepares the ground for it. Self-actualization being that ongoing process of expressing your unique potential, fulfilling your authentic purpose, becoming more fully you. Just like the balloon needs prepping before flight, or the phoenix needs its foundational elements, our higher growth benefits hugely from tending to these basic human needs.
They're not opposing forces, foundation, and growth.
Not at all. They're complementary, like the balloon's basket and its flame, or the phoenix's nest and its fire. Both essential.
Got it. The book has a foundation integration mapping exercise here. How does that help tie it all together visually?
It's really valuable for making those links explicit. You draw a circle, divide it into 4 quadrants for the 4 foundations: physiological, safety, belonging, esteem.
Okay.
In the center, you put a symbol or a phrase for your current vision of higher growth or self-actualization, whatever that means to you now.
Right.
Then you draw lines connecting each foundation quadrant to that central vision. And as you draw them, you reflect, how does this foundation support my higher growth? How could it support it better?
Making the connections conscious.
Yes. And finally, you identify 2-3 specific foundational practices like a sleep routine, a boundary practice, a connection ritual, finding ways to contribute that you'll commit to maintaining as ongoing support. It makes it actionable.
That sounds like a really practical way to build and maintain that solid base. Now, the book shifts focus a bit to emotional connection. Why are emotions so vital for deeper understanding and growth?
Well, we often prioritize logic, rational thought, action, especially when we're trying to grow or change something.
Right, the doing part.
Exactly. But research is increasingly showing just how vital our emotional connection is for deeper self-understanding, for sustainable change.
So emotions aren't just obstacles.
Far from it. They're incredibly sophisticated information systems. When we learn to engage with them skillfully, they open pathways to wisdom that intellect alone just can't reach.
Like Antonio Damasio's work.
Precisely. His work showed how crucial emotional processing is for sound judgment, for decision-making. It's not thinking or feeling, it's the synergy.
So our feelings hold valuable data for us.
Absolutely. Modern psychology distinguishes between say, reactive emotional patterns, those automatic flare-ups,
Wow.
and true emotional intelligence or wisdom, which involves engaging feelings not by suppressing them or being ruled by them, but as complex sources of information and energy.
Okay.
Our emotions are interwoven with our body state, past experiences, environmental cues, relationships, culture. They often know things our conscious mind hasn't caught up with yet.
That makes sense. Like a gut feeling.
Yeah, and that's often why real emotional connection precedes or facilitates those big cognitive insights that lead to transformation. The heart has to open before the mind can really expand.
Okay. The book has an emotional gateway practice. How does that help us tap into this emotional wisdom?
It's a contemplative exercise. You pick an area where you feel stuck or confused,
Right.
find a quiet space, breathe, center yourself, then bring the stuck situation to mind and invite the main emotion that comes up. Invite it to speak.
Speak. How?
You can ask it questions silently, like,
Well,
what are you trying to protect? What do you need? What have I missed here? What action would feel more integrated, more aligned with you?
an inner dialogue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you note any insights, any shifts, and crucially, you identify one specific concrete action you can take that honors the wisdom you received from that emotion.
Moving from just feeling it to learning from it and acting on it.
Precisely. It's a shift from being reactive to being in dialogue.
That sounds really profound. Then the book transitions to viewing change as natural evolution. How does seeing change this way help?
This is a fundamental shift. Seeing change not as a disruption to fight, but as the essence of life itself, the natural unfolding of potential in all living systems, ourselves included.
So aligning with life's rhythm.
Yes. Biology and complexity theory show that living systems maintain stability through continuous adaptation, dynamic equilibrium. It's a constant dance.
So fighting change is like fighting life itself.
Pretty much. This shift changes our relationship with change. Instead of resistance and anxiety, it becomes creative participation, engaged learning.
Asking different questions.
Right. Not how do I stop this, but how can I align with this? How can I contribute to its unfolding?
Getting rid of the myth of stasis.
Exactly. That illusion that stability means staying the same, it's just not true. Change is constant. Our self isn't fixed. It's a process of intelligent adaptation.
Okay. And the evolutionary perspective shift exercise helps with this.
Yeah, it's a reflective practice. Pick a significant change happening in your life. Then look at it through 3 lenses. First, the resistance lens. What feels threatened? What are my fears? What am I trying to hold on to?
Acknowledge the resistance.
Yes. Then, the evolutionary lens. How might this be part of a larger unfolding? What new possibilities could emerge? What's the bigger picture?
Stepping back.
And finally, the integration lens. How can I participate constructively? What small adjustments can I make? How can I contribute positively?
Okay.
Then, based on all that, you identify 3 things: an internal mindset shift, an external action, and a source of support. It makes engagement with change holistic.
That sounds incredibly empowering, shifting from victim of change to participant. Now, the book talks about peak experiences. What are they and why are they significant for growth?
Peak experiences are those relatively rare but incredibly impactful moments. Intense joy, clarity, connection, expanded awareness.
Wow moments.
Exactly. Research confirms they can be powerful catalysts, often kickstarting new phases of growth and understanding that last long after the experience itself.
How do they do that?
It seems they temporarily suspend our usual ways of seeing the world, our usual identity patterns. This creates openings for reorganization around bigger possibilities, deeper meaning.
Like a temporary reset, offering a glimpse of something more. The book lists some common characteristics.
Yeah, things like unity consciousness, feeling connected to everything, boundaries dissolving, perceptual clarity, seeing things vividly, directly, without the usual filters, intense emotion, awe, joy, deep peace.
Okay.
Often a sense of transcending normal time and space, a profound sense of meaning and purpose, and sometimes they happen during liminal transitions, those big life changes that make us more open.
Sounds life-altering.
Yeah.
But the book stresses it's not just having the peak experience, it's the integration afterwards.
Absolutely critical. The real impact comes from weaving those insights, those feelings, into your ongoing life, your awareness, your beliefs, your actions.
Otherwise, it just becomes a nice memory.
Exactly. Integration turns a profound encounter into a transformative influence. You have to actively weave it into the fabric of your life.
Okay, conscious integration is key. The book uses a beautiful metaphor for self-actualization. The red dawn of becoming. What does that convey?
It's lovely, isn't it? It captures self-actualization not as a final destination, not perfection,
Right, not a static endpoint.
but as an ongoing, dynamic process, an ever-new emergence of possibility, like a dawn that keeps breaking, always fresh.
Wow.
It emphasizes that it's about the continuous journey of becoming more you, moment by moment, through the choices you make right now that align with your authentic self, your deepest values.
So the journey is the destination, in a way.
In a very real way, the book wraps the section asking you to see your current commitment to growth as just the latest step in this lifelong adventure of becoming.
That's a really encouraging perspective. Now, what fuels this ongoing journey? The book shifts to unearthing hidden passions. Why is passion so essential?
Passion is the vital energy source. It's the heat for the balloon's ascent, the fire for the phoenix's rebirth.
The engine.
The engine, exactly. The book asks, what fires have been banked inside you? What activities make you lose track of time, feel totally alive? Because research shows lasting transformation needs more than just willpower, intellect. It needs energized action, sustained over time.
Intrinsic motivation.
Passion provides exactly that inner drive that makes the hard work of growth feel magnetic, rewarding in itself.
So passion isn't just fluff, it's fuel.
Right.
The book offers prompts to help excavate hidden passions.
Yeah, 3 helpful ones. First, early sparks. Think back to childhood, adolescence. What activities brought pure joy, made you lose track of time?
Okay.
Second, hidden attractions. What subjects, activities, challenges unexpectedly grab your attention now, even if they seem random or you feel you shouldn't be interested?
Pay attention to those pulls.
Right. And third, energy auditing. Track your energy levels. Which activities energize you? Which drain you? It's about finding what genuinely ignites that inner fire.
Really tuning in to what lights you up. But it's not just about finding passion. It's about directing it, channeling passionate energy.
Exactly. Like fire, undirected passion can just dissipate or even be destructive. The key is learning to channel it, apply it intentionally.
How?
When directed, passion becomes the force that turns potential into reality, fuels growth in specific, meaningful ways. The book has an exercise for this. Passion energy mapping.
Passion energy mapping.
Yeah.
How does that work?
You create a visual map. On one side, list your identified passions, the energizers.
Okay.
On the other side, list your major growth goals, your aspirations.
Right.
Then you draw connections. Link each passion to specific goals. Look for obvious links, but also less obvious creative ones.
Seeing how they might relate.
Yes. And for the strong connections, you articulate what qualities of this passion, creativity, precision, courage, can I transfer to fuel this growth area? It's about intentionally harnessing that power.
That sounds really practical for bridging the gap between what excites us and what we want to achieve. Now, passion is energy, but the book says we also need finding meaning and purpose for direction.
Exactly. Passion is the fire, purpose is the direction. The balloon needs heat and navigation. The phoenix needs fire and a pattern for rebirth.
Okay.
Viktor Frankl's insights are key here, the power of meaning to endure hardship. And research confirms it. A strong sense of meaning correlates with resilience, less depression, better immunity, even longer life.
Wow.
When our actions connect to something bigger than just us, we can grow through challenges that might otherwise crush us.
The book mentions Michael Steiger's sources of meaning.
Yes, 4 interconnected sources. Purpose. Feeling your life is directed toward worthy goals. Comprehension, making sense of experiences, understanding your place, significance, feeling your existence matters, has value. And belonging, which we already covered, they all weave together.
So meaning isn't just one thing. The book has a values clarification practice to help find our purpose.
Yeah, it helps identify your core values, which guide your purpose. Find a quiet space, breathe, then reflect. Recall peak moments when you felt most alive, aligned. Identify the core qualities present in those moments, what values were being expressed. Then distill the overarching value themes, what truly matters to you.
Looking at our best moments to find our core values. And the book suggests different pathways to discovering purpose.
3 main ones. The relational pathway, purpose emerging through conversations, communities, impact on others.
Okay.
The adversity pathway, purpose arising from responding to challenges, often leading to helping others with similar struggles.
Turning pain into purpose.
Exactly. And the creative expression pathway, finding purpose by aligning talents and passions with meaningful contribution through creativity. The book suggests picking one pathway that resonates and exploring it intentionally for a week.
So purpose can be found in relationships, through hardship, or through creativity. And the benefits of having a clear purpose.
They're huge. Enhanced motivation, better values alignment in choices, a stronger resilience foundation, improved meaning-making capacity, and clear response guidance in complex situations.
It really acts like an inner compass.
Absolutely. There's even a purpose activation ritual suggested for transition times, like a short meditation, holding a symbol, reading your purpose statement to reconnect with that compass.
Okay, so passion for energy, purpose for direction. Then comes cultivating the altitude perspective. What's that?
It's the ability to mentally step back from the immediate situation, the weeds, and see it in the context of larger meaning.
The big picture view.
Yeah, like the balloon pilot seeing the whole landscape, not just what's directly below. It gives you psychological flexibility, helps you navigate difficulties less reactively.
I can practice that.
There's an altitude perspective practice. Pick a current challenge or decision. Visualize stepping back, getting that broader view. Ask, what's the larger context? What really matters here? What possibilities exist beyond my immediate worries? Just shifting perspective often brings new understanding.
Seeing the forest for the trees. And how do passion and purpose work together? That synergy.
That's where the real magic happens. Growth flourishes when passionate engagement fuses with purposeful direction.
Heat and navigation.
Fire and pattern, you need both. The journey thrives when you bring your energy to things aligned with what you find meaningful. There's a synergy mapping exercise to help identify and strengthen that integration.
Finding that sweet spot where what you love meets what matters. Okay, let's shift to what drives action. Understanding motivation. Intrinsic versus extrinsic.
Right. Intrinsic motivation comes from within doing something because it's inherently satisfying. Extrinsic is about external rewards or avoiding punishment.
And intrinsic is better for long-term growth.
Generally, yes. Much more sustainable, fulfilling. But the book also introduces the motivation integration spectrum. It shows how extrinsic motivation can become internalized over time. It moves through stages. Purely external. Then introjected, doing it to avoid guilt or gain approval, then identified, seeing the value, then integrated, fully aligned with your values, and finally, truly intrinsic.
So it's a continuum. The motivation spectrum assessment helps figure out where we are on that.
Exactly. For a few key activities, you answer questions. Would you do it without external validation? What's inherently satisfying? What external factors influence you? How does it align with your values? Do you experience flow? Based on your answers, you place the activity on the spectrum. Then you can explore how to connect more externally driven activities to your deeper values and purpose to nudge them towards intrinsic.
Understanding why we do things. The book then talks about constructive urgency. How is that different from just feeling stressed and frantic?
Crucial difference. Destructive urgency feels overwhelming, rushed, driven by fear, leads to frantic, often unfocused action, stress, burnout.
We've all been there.
Right. Constructive urgency comes from clearly seeing a meaningful opportunity or a genuine need for timely action. It creates focused attention, mobilizes resources, but without that threat-based stress.
Like focused energy, not panicked energy.
Perfect. Like an athlete before a race, energized, ready, but purposeful. The book suggests ways to shift urgency, connect to purpose, create safety, a sense of control, establish scope, break it down.
Okay. Driven by purpose, not fear.
Oh.
Then there's honoring rhythms of engagement and strategic patience, finding that balance.
Yes. Extraordinary growth isn't usually about constant, relentless pushing or just passively waiting. It's a skillful rhythm.
A dance between action and allowing.
Exactly. Periods of focused, passionate action, alternating with receptive, strategic patience, letting things integrate, unfold, mature.
Like the balloon pilot using bursts of heat, then drifting.
Or the phoenix's intense transformation followed by quiet renewal. Your journey thrives when you learn to sense that natural rhythm, when to push, when to pause. There's an engagement patience rhythm assessment to help you reflect on your tendencies.
Learning to read the currents. Now, focus. The power of strategic focus and cultivating the beginner's mind. How do these work together?
Well, strategic focus is about realizing that not all effort is equal. The Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, often 80% of results come from 20% of the effort. So concentrate your energy strategically.
Work smarter, not just harder.
Right. But then, crucially, you balance that focus with the beginner's mind,
Which is
creating openness, curiosity, receptivity. preventing your expertise or momentum from making you rigid. It's about nurturing curiosity, asking basic questions, letting go of assumptions, embracing not knowing.
Approaching things fresh, even if you're an expert.
Exactly. It's not about lacking knowledge, but holding it lightly, seeing understanding as provisional, approaching mastery as a continuous journey. It helps you see past your filters. The book has practices like a curiosity cultivation practice and a wonder walk.
Seeing the familiar with new eyes. Then the art of asking powerful questions in assumption archaeology.
Powerful questions open doors. They shift you from seeking confirmation to genuine exploration. The beginner's questions practice helps with this.
Okay. And assumption archaeology.
That's digging down to uncover the unconscious beliefs and frameworks shaping your thinking, especially those limiting you. There's a practice to help identify and examine these foundational assumptions.
Questioning the foundations of our thinking. Then embracing not knowing and navigating transformative transitions.
Embracing not knowing, paradoxically, leads to deeper wisdom than false certainty. It opens you to discovery. There's an embracing I don't know practice for this.
Okay.
And it addresses transformative transitions, those messy in-between times when old structures dissolve before new ones form, can feel disorienting.
Red Phoenix moments.
Yes, reflecting on past dissolutions and how you navigated them to gain wisdom for current transitions.
Becoming comfortable with the messy middle. And it concludes, beginner's mind as lifelong practice and the bridge to self-efficacy.
Right. Beginner's mind isn't a one-off trick. It's a lifelong orientation, a perpetual practice that becomes embodied wisdom. There's a begin-again practice for this.
Okay.
And this ongoing openness, this humility, naturally builds self-efficacy, belief in your ability to learn, adapt, succeed. When you're open to learning, you become more confident you can learn.
Which leads us right into cultivating self-efficacy, the power of belief. Why is believing in our capabilities so crucial?
Self-efficacy, belief in your ability to organize and execute actions to get results, is fundamental. It determines how you approach challenges, how much effort you put in, how resilient you are. Albert Bandura's work showed this clearly.
It shapes what we even try to do.
Exactly. The book outlines the 4 sources: mastery experiences, direct success; vicarious learning, seeing others succeed; social messages, encouragement from others; and internal states, how we interpret our own feelings.
Our successes, role models, cheerleaders, and how we read our own body signals. And this belief impacts our biology, the neuroscience and biomechanics of self-belief.
It's fascinating. Beliefs literally shape brain activity. Strong self-efficacy shows more prefrontal cortex activity, planning, deciding, and less amygdala activity, fear. Creates an approach state.
Moving towards challenges, not away.
Right, and it affects biochemistry, stress hormones, immune function, energy, muscle tension. There are exercises like the efficacy-shaping belief reflection and activation reinterpretation practice to become aware of and work with these mind-body links.
Amazing how belief becomes biology.
Yeah.
The book also tackles internal roadblocks, navigating the inner critic and the red dragon of fear.
Yeah, the inner critic, that voice of doubt, judgment, can really undermine self-efficacy. There's an inner critic dialogue exercise to help develop a more skillful relationship with it.
Understand it, not just fight it.
And then there's the deeper, more visceral fear, the red dragon, that emerges when we really push our boundaries. There's a fear as protective wisdom practice to engage this fear compassionately, seeing its protective intent.
Working with these inner voices and fears. Then, the architecture of progressive mastery and achievement thresholds, building efficacy through experience.
Yes, but strategically, not random trial and error. It involves challenge calibration, that flow channel, 70% success chance, getting specific feedback, and strategic recovery.
Okay.
And the book introduces the red ladder of achievement, key challenge thresholds that significantly boost self-efficacy.
Like levels in a game.
Sort of. Skill acquisition, independent execution, complexity navigation, creative extension, and the volition threshold, persisting through setbacks. There's a threshold navigation planning exercise to tackle these strategically.
Intentionally designing challenges to build competence and confidence. And self-efficacy is an integrated system.
Totally. It's not isolated. It enhances all the other aspects of growth we've discussed, like the pilot's confidence in the balloon or the phoenix's trust in its renewal. It amplifies everything else.
Okay, that sets the stage for another core concept, cultivating a growth mindset. Foundational for resilience, right?
Absolutely fundamental. Believing abilities can be developed, growth mindset, versus believing they're fixed. We touched on it, but it's key.
Challenges as catalysts versus proof of limits.
Exactly. The balloon sees turbulence as data. The phoenix sees dissolution as necessary for rebirth. It's a fundamental choice in perception. And neuroscience shows fixed mindsets pay less attention to corrective feedback after errors. There's a mindset observation practice to notice your own tendencies.
Seeing challenges as opportunities, then the components of grit and cultivating resilience, sticking with it and bouncing back.
Grit is that sustained passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Components include sustained interest, deliberate practice, hope, purposeful contribution, and a growth identity.
Okay.
Resilience is not just bouncing back, but growing through adversity, post-traumatic growth. The red heart of resilience includes capacities like meaning-making, active coping, connection, resourcefulness, and transcendence growth-seeking. There are practices for developing both grit and resilience.
Determination and the ability to grow from hardship. And revisiting viewing change as adaptation and evolution, and maintaining coherence.
Yes, reinforcing change as natural, essential. Sustainable development means cultivating adaptive capacity, maintaining integrity while evolving. Like the balloon adapting navigation or the phoenix incorporating new elements each cycle, there's an adaptive learning mapping exercise for this.
Okay.
And maintaining coherence, that core thread of values, purpose through transitions, a continuity thread reflection helps identify this.
Adapting while staying true to your core. And the transformative response sequence to setbacks, a framework for navigating challenges.
Exactly. A structured way to respond constructively. Recognition and acknowledgement, emotional processing, cognitive reframing, strategic analysis, experimental adaptation, and integration and continuation. The setback as catalyst reflection helps learn from past setbacks using this framework.
Turning setbacks into learning opportunities. And all this builds the bridge to transformation architecture.
Yes. Growth mindset, self-efficacy, grit, resilience, adapting to change, learning from setbacks. This all creates the psychological foundation needed to deliberately design and implement transformation, viewing planned change as intentional evolution.
Which leads us into the really proactive part, the architecture of intentional change, designing your growth.
Exactly. Moving from understanding to actively shaping, becoming the architect of your own growth.
Correct.
This section covers the predictable stages of change, creating growth blueprints, tracking progress adaptively, navigating resistance. It starts with the 5 stages: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, remembering they aren't always linear. There's a transformation stage assessment to see where you are now.
Getting practical tools for designing change. Then, navigating the transition zone and crafting your comprehensive blueprint, that tricky phase between action and maintenance.
Yeah, the transition zone, it has unique challenges. Losing initial enthusiasm, seeing the real effort involved, identity limbo, competing commitments. There's a reflection for navigating this. Then, crafting the blueprint. Essential elements include clear vision and compelling purpose, specific and measurable goals, strategic action planning, supportive environmental design, feedback and adjustment mechanisms, and integration strategies. A blueprint design exercise walks you through creating this.
A structured yet flexible plan. And the importance of establishing boundaries, red lines, and embracing flexibility, open spaces.
Crucial balance. Red lines are clear boundaries protecting values, ethics, core identity, non-negotiables. Open spaces allow for flexibility, experimentation, learning, integration.
Structure and freedom.
Exactly. Red lines provide safety. Open spaces prevent rigidity. There's a mapping exercise to define these for your change process.
Knowing your limits while staying open.
Yeah.
Then, tracking progress effectively and making strategic adjustments.
Tracking needs to be more than just metrics. Include qualitative data, context, key principles, relevant metrics, manageable data collection, appropriate frequency, contextual documentation, actionable insights. There's an exercise to design your tracking system. And adjustments need balance, maintaining direction while learning. Effective adjustment involves discernment, not reactivity, precision, not overcorrection, evolution, not abandonment, integration, not just adding more, and curious exploration, not harsh judgment. An exercise helps develop your adjustment strategy.
Monitoring meaningfully and adapting wisely. Finally, navigating resistance as a valuable guardian. Reframing resistance.
Yes, see it not as an enemy, but a protective function, a source of information. What's it trying to protect? What values are involved?
Get curious about it.
Right. The book lists common sources, fear of unknown, loss of control, etc., and encourages dialogue with resistance as a guardian figure. It identifies currents of resistance, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, social, and offers navigation strategies for each, plus environmental strategies. A resistance dialogue and strategy practice helps you work with it.
Understanding resistance instead of fighting it. And this whole architecture is integrated.
Totally. It's a system, like the balloon or phoenix. Each part supports the others, which leads perfectly into the final section. Daily cultivations for extraordinary growth, making it real every day.
Exactly, embodying these principles in daily life. The book outlines several key practices.
Like
Morning mindfulness, using that post-waking window for presence. The morning illumination ritual connects to inner energy, sets intentions.
starting the day grounded.
Then evening gratitude, reflecting on value, meaning the evening reflection ritual cultivates appreciation, integrates learning.
Ending with reflection.
Embodied movement, honoring the body's wisdom with the embodied flight sequence. Meaningful connection, nurturing relationships via the connection cultivation ritual.
Mind, heart, body, relationships.
Creative expression, making inner worlds visible with the creative flow ritual. Digital detox, reclaiming attention with tech boundaries.
Essential these days.
Goal setting and review, charting the course with weekly daily practices. And crucially, prioritizing sleep and rest, investing in renewal, strategic recovery, with lots of dimensions considered.
Covering all the bases. And it loops back, emphasizing morning mindfulness and evening gratitude as the bookends of presence, anchoring the day.
These all sound like really potent, practical ways to weave growth into daily life.
And so, listener, you've journeyed through this deep dive with us. The principles are there, the architecture, the daily practices.
The foundations are laid out. Remember, those time guidelines for the rituals, they're flexible. Adapt them to your life.
And as you continue your own voyage, hold on to those promises that likely drew you here. Improve mental health, deeper meaning, authentic purpose.
A better quality of life, lasting inner peace. These aren't just abstract ideas.
No, they become lived realities through your consistent engagement, step by intentional step.
Think of your journey like that sunrise the book mentions, continuously unfolding, always new light, new possibilities.
Acknowledge your courage for even starting, your commitment, your curiosity, the compassion you bring to it all.
The voyage continues. The sky awaits. And you, magnificent in your unfolding, steadfast in your seeking, radiant in your becoming, you are more than equal to the journey ahead.
And just briefly, the author of A Voyage of Extraordinary Growth, Joseph Kelly, brings a really valuable perspective as a mental health research, social worker, author, and advocate focused on making complex research accessible and practical.
Yeah, his work shows that deep, holistic understanding, mental health connected everything, our whole experience, our communities, it really shines through.